That's not what we started to teach, which was that every baby is, I don't know, let's not even put it on the birth certificate. That's what they wanted.
Were we teaching that?
Yes, we
When were we teaching that?
Teaching it. It was a law here in California. See,
to teach what?
Don't put sex on the birth certificate. We'll see.
Bill Maher has finally explained why he believes he can no longer support the political left, and honestly, his remarks surprised many. While he has long criticized progressive politics, few expected him to deliver such a blunt verdict. Maher didn't hold back, saying the left has strayed from its path and must act quickly if it hopes to retain any meaningful influence in American society. This isn't a gentle...
Admit this. This country is not as mature as it thinks it is. We elected Obama, and clearly the country freaked out. We're still living in that freak out. We are not as progressed and evolved and intelligent as we think we are because we keep freaking out about this stuff.
Well,
you know?
The left freak out too. The left freaked out about a lot of too.
What did they freak out about?
Gender, race, parenthood, schools, homelessness, crime, the border, education. Like we stopped being a scientific people.
Maher begins by laying out the reasons he believes the left has gone astray, ending with a point that he considers the most significant, a rejection of basic scientific truths. He argues that logic and evidence are increasingly disregarded, especially on issues involving biological reality. For example, some insist that gender identity can override biological sex entirely, with declarations alone determining one's classification as male or female. Maher views this as a clear departure.
It's not scientific.
But the left certainly stayed scientific.
No, they didn't.
Why not?
Because they think...
According to Maher, the left's preoccupation with gender identity debates played a major role in recent election losses. He believes that the conversation was pushed far beyond what ordinary Americans wanted or were willing to support. Instead of focusing on practical issues like the economy, public safety, and education, political leaders emphasized redefining basic biological concepts and insisting that everyone accept these changes unquestioningly. Maher argues that this overreach didn't simply alienate moderates, it actively drove voters away. By transforming a niche ideological concern into a nationwide demand, the left set itself up for failure, and the election results reflected this miscalculation.
We started to teach, which was that every baby is, I don't know, let's not even put it on the birth certificate. That's what they wanted.
Were we teaching that?
Yes, we were.
When were we teaching that?
Teaching it. It was a law here in California. See,
to teach what?
Don't put on the birth certificate. We'll see. Now we've passed that period. Now
I'm sorry, I don't remember that. I mean,
I know because it doesn't get in the blue sky bubble.
Wait a minute, I'm not just on blue sky.
I really think that's a lot of it. Is that some of this stuff doesn't get in to everybody's media.
Another issue Maher highlights is the left's growing fascination with socialism. He argues that socialism, far from being a viable solution, is a political and economic risk with a history of failure. According to him, embracing socialist policies does not energize the Democratic Party. Rather, it slows momentum and alienates voters who are wary of experiments with large-scale government intervention. Maher points out that people have seen examples from across the globe, witnessing the economic strain and lack of personal freedom that often accompanies socialism. Despite this evidence, he says, the left continues to push the ideology, seemingly oblivious to the lessons of history. To Maher,
capitalist South Korea at night from space. Here's socialist North Korea. Yeah. In 1990, Venezuela was wealthier than Poland. But then Poland, finally free of Soviet-style economics, went all in on capitalism. And now their economy is as big as Japan. And people there have high wages, low inflation, cars, vacations, homes. Meanwhile, Venezuela traded capitalism for Hugo Chavez's Socialism for the 21st Century, which turned out to be like socialism in the last century or any century, a mess.
States like New York, Maher argues, appear convinced they can reinvent socialism, polishing it into a better version that somehow avoids the historical pitfalls. Lawmakers often act as if they have discovered a smarter, cleaner system, one that will not collapse under its own weight. Maher, however, remains skeptical. He believes New York is repeating the same mistakes that countless countries have already made. Regardless of how it is presented, socialism, in his view, always leads to economic pressure, overextended government control, and a gradual erosion of individual freedom. Maher warns that the lessons of history are clear, and yet the same cycle is being repeated.
Turned one of Latin America's richest countries into one of its poorest. Low wages, high inflation, shortages, outages, 8 million people fleeing. If you think New York can somehow reinvent this wheel, you're in for a rude awakening.
Maher places the blame for what he calls the woke virus squarely on the Democratic Party. He argues that leaders abandon the everyday concerns of their core supporters, issues like employment, personal safety, affordable living, and economic stability, while diving headfirst into ideological battles that most Americans never asked for. Instead of creating policies that tangibly improve people's lives, the party became preoccupied with identity politics, turning gender debates into defining political issues. Maher emphasizes that this obsession didn't remain limited to politics. It extended into broader American culture, reshaping media, brands, and institutions. He uses Playboy magazine as an example, noting that it shifted from a mainstream cultural icon to a platform echoing the same progressive talking points dominating political discourse. This, he argues, illustrates how far the Democratic Party has strayed from representing ordinary Americans.
6 years, Playboy magazine was also a fact of American life. Sears sold your father a mattress, and Playboy was what he hid under it. It was a surefire product. Pictures of tits and then 25 cartoons about Santa Claus. Plus real journalism. You could read an interview with Carter while enjoying photos of Bush. But then it started messing around with the formula. Like the Democratic Party, Playboy decided they didn't need straight men anymore.
Maher extends this criticism to the corporate world. He points out that businesses and institutions that eagerly embraced the woke movement suffered serious consequences. Following ideological trends, he says, became not just a cultural gamble but a financial one. Brands that once thrived suddenly alienated loyal customers, weakened their public image, and moved away from the principles that had made them successful. For example, Playboy attempted a woke rebranding and lost much of its long-standing audience. Budweiser, after embracing controversial social messaging, faced one of the largest consumer backlashes in modern corporate history. Even retail giants like Sears fell into the trap, prioritizing virtue signaling over fundamental business strategy. Maher stresses that these failures were not random. They were the result of completely misunderstanding the customer base, chasing ideological approval at the expense of economic stability.
Transgender women and gay men on the cover, and predictably sales, like their subscribers' penises, collapsed. The staff began using terms like intersectionality, positivity, and privileging, and in response, Playboy readers used terms like no thanks, get the out of here, and bye-bye. At one point, Playboy, yes, Playboy, even dropped the which is like cigar aficionado announcing, we're getting rid of the cigars. It went from entertainment for men to re-education for nobody, and enlightened their way to unpopularity. Meanwhile, Kim Kardashian posed for another magazine and broke the internet with her.
Meanwhile, Maher notes, Donald Trump was campaigning on tangible, practical issues that mattered to Americans: the economy, job growth, and national security. In contrast, the left focused on debates about gender identity and trans participation in sports. While these topics mattered to a small segment of the population, they were far removed from the concerns of most Americans: rising costs, crime, and overall quality of life. According to Maher, this misalignment of priorities gave Trump a significant advantage and contributed to his electoral success. The election served as a clear demonstration that voters prioritize practical issues over abstract cultural debates.
Sometimes you got to give the people what they want. But for some weird reason, it's apparently tempting for some people to not do that, because even Cracker Barrel recently decided that they felt a little embarrassed that it was so popular with bumpkins who salivate at the sight of an old wagon wheel screwed to the wall. So they changed it to this, which got them no new customers while pissing off the old ones. It reminded me of when Chuck Schumer said in 2016 that for every blue-collar Democrat we lose in Western Pennsylvania, we're going to pick up 2 moderate Republicans in the suburbs of Philly, Ohio, Illinois, and Wisconsin. Yeah, how'd that work out?
Maher argues that the Democratic National Committee should have taken these electoral losses seriously, examined their failures, and adjusted strategy accordingly. Instead, he says, the party doubled down on the same approaches that alienated voters in the first place. From his perspective, this is baffling. How can a political party that was rejected for overemphasizing woke ideology respond by embracing an even more controversial agenda, such as socialism? Maher sees this as a fundamental misunderstanding of political strategy and voter sentiment, signaling a deep disconnect between leadership and everyday Americans.
Cracker Barrel had the sense to immediately say, oh, sorry, and put the sling blades back on the wall. Democrats don't seem to be doing that. They still seem to want to be that upscale store that impresses celebrities. Anybody remember Barney's? It was this store in New York that started in the 1920s, as a discount clothing joint on unfashionable, grimy 7th Avenue, a place where their customers, though working man, could get a decent suit at a very reasonable price. I remember going there in 1993 to get my wardrobe for a new show Comedy Central was launching called Politically Incorrect.
Finally, Maher paints a stark picture of the left's trajectory. He argues that the combination of obsession with woke culture, gender identity debates, and socialism has pushed voters away, while weakening both the Democratic Party and major institutions. While Trump focused on practical concerns that resonated with the average American, the left concentrated on ideological battles few people supported, resulting in lost elections and diminished credibility. Maher warns that unless the party returns to policies that address real-world concerns and reconnects with its base, it risks repeating the same mistakes, leaving its future uncertain. He closes with a clear message: practical action and reconnection with voters are essential for survival.